Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to our early game playbook guide series, and today we'll be covering Liu Biao, the Gentleman of the Han. So Liu Biao actually plays super differently than most factions in the game because of his unique faction mechanic called Governance, and because of this, it's actually quite difficult to get used to his faction. But overall, his faction is actually quite strong because Governance is one of these resources that you can only gain and never lose. So it's a slow build up. You're weak in the early game and super strong once you hit the mid to late game. And the faster you can gain Governance, the stronger you will become because you'll be ahead of every AI faction on the curve. So introducing this faction that's focused on characters and politics, this really just means you have a lot of court positions to utilize, mainly court tutors that can help increase your character experience. But this is just kind of a side quest game for you to play to help gain more experience so your generals can be higher level, but mainly you're trying to gain Governance as we mentioned. And the only ways you can gain Governance is by creating vassals or by building your unique lodging building, which is an inn building replacement. And this functions very much like the inn building, except it provides additional Governance. It does increase the income by a little bit, but that's not the main idea behind this. The main idea is you gain these Governance points, and based on how much Governance you have acquired, it dictates how much domain or land you can hold. And you can see this on the resource bar once we go into game, and we'll explain how the maximum domain works, including what type of benefits you get if you're under your domain, what kind of penalties you get if you're above your domain, and how those things change on patch 1.7.1 with all the changes to Imperial favor. Aside from that, we do have two unique units, the Infantry of Jin and the Imperial Defenders. These two are essentially better spear guards and better heavy spear guards, and they work exactly like that. They pretty much function as the front line for any army. Very strong, very high morale, counters pretty much every single type of unit in the game except for axe unit, but the good thing is there's not that many axe unit, and even if you're faced off against certain axe unit, if you have Imperial Defenders, you're much higher quality than most axe unit, which tends to be on the lighter side. You can beat them even on one-on-one combat. On top of that, you have your special lodging building as we mentioned. We'll take a look at this once we get into game. We have court scholars, which are unique positions given out in our faction to help increase the experience gain of those scholars as well as the rest of the characters in your faction. You also have the loyalty to the Han, which means you're a governor faction. You cannot gain an imperial seat by yourself when you reach king. You must acquire the other three. So that part is a little bit tricky. Aside from that, we have one noteworthy character in Huang Zhong, the ageless strength. So he's gonna last till at least 70, and age is just a number for him, and if you play on timeless mode, he will last forever. Very skilled archer general. And looking at Liu Biao himself, we have elusive, scholarly, and indecisive. So indecisive does take away some of the character experience boost that you get from scholarly, and for elusive, it's not going to help you very much because you are faction leader, so all the spying bonuses, all the administrator boosts are really not going to help you. What's really going to help you is your Gentleman of the Han background. Right off the bat, you get 20% character salary. This will add up during the course of the game, and it's actually super powerful because titles are considered character salary. Any sort of administrator position, any sort of court position include a salary portion. So 20% of whatever increase you do will add up quite a bit, allowing you to give away a lot of titles, to assign a lot of characters to courts, and overall recruit a lot of characters. Then you have 20% recruitment cost discount for all spear unit, and if you remember, our unique unit are spear units, so that will play very nicely into our entire faction, and we get 50% diplomatic income from tributaries. Now of course we cannot demand tribute, but if we have vassals, in this case if we want to gain Governance, we have to gain it from vassals or lodging. It's a synergy there. But do note, you don't want the grant independence vassalage because that's considered a normal vassal. What you want is a special form of vassal unique to your faction called cooperation. So only vassals gained through diplomacy with cooperation will count. the vassals that you create from grant independence will not count towards governance gain. Now, this does not mean you shouldn't create vassals from independence. You should, because what you can do is then offer them autonomy so they like you, then liberate them so they like you more, and then offer them the cooperation, and usually they will say yes. So it takes a couple more steps and a few more diplomatic tweaks, but you can definitely use grant independence to build factions that have very high favorable ratings with you, and who are also very weak because they will have no armies on that first turn. And then you can kind of liberate them, promise them independence, make them love you even more, and then you drop them the cooperation command, and once they become your vassal that way, they will start granting you governance. But using our start here, we're actually going to focus heavily on lodging because this is a really, really good building. I'll explain why once we get into the game. And this is kind of where this entire starting strategy is built around. How to build up your governance quickly using lodging buildings. And if we look at the map, we actually start out with 2 vassals who will provide us governance. We have Cai Mao and Huangzu, and we start out in Xiangyang, kind of in the middle of all this action. But the good news is we're not at war with many factions. As a matter of fact, we're only at war with the Yellow Turbans next to us. Everyone else are our friends. Because we're governor, even Dongzhuo and the Han Empire are our friends in the beginning. So this really helps us with a passive start. And we also have diplomatic vision of Sun Jian on the first turn, which means we can always start with the Imperial Seal if we want to. And we'll definitely grab that one. So that's it. We're going to hop into game. We're showcasing this on Legendary 40 minutes, no mods. China must be united.
主公，帝都今已焚作丘墟。
东贼嫁祸汉家天下，此等恶行，虽戮九族，难偿其辜。
此贼劫迁天子，挟献帝西投长安。
吾乃汉室宗亲，谁曾想此贼竟有如此奸计？世人皆言我自守不动，不若同宗刘备，但吾自有世人不及之才。若是要开战，则需物资充盈，统治强力。吾治下确实如此。
南有孙坚虎踞，包藏祸心；北有袁术龙盘，天屯兵马。
此等宵小之辈，贪得无厌，不可放任。身为汉室宗亲，吾必将誓死平卫汉室，以御万险。
主公，天命不可欺，若是未能守住汉室，不若取而代之。
Alrighty, so that's our flyby. Establish your power. Lord Liu Biao, you have been an effective governor, but even your territory is not safe from the rising chaos. Dongzhuo controls your kin, the emperor, and it's not unthinkable that he will seek to eventually supplant him. You must ensure the Han dynasty survives, yet the ambitious lurk everywhere. Sun Jian and Yuan Shu have long coveted your territory, so you must tend to your own defenses before looking to the rest of China's woes. Be wary of Yuan Shu and Sun Jian, defeat Yellow Turbans. Okay, so our first mission is to engage Liao Hua's army in front of us, taste of victory, very standard opening, and we have a pretty sizable army, so this fight is really a foregone conclusion. You can fight this manually, get a duel for Huang Zhong if you want to level him up, or even Liu Biao if you want to level him up. You might want to switch him to a more aggressive weapon before you do that if you are thinking about using Liu Biao. The reason you might want to level him up is that you can pick up flexibility and understanding a little bit quicker, so that you can get the +1 rank for all your units being recruited, as well as the 25% redeployment cost discount. Those are nice things to get early on. But we're not going to jump into the fight right away. A lot of this is how to set up our diplomacy. Now, this is not going to be one of those step-by-step guides. I mean, you can try to do the same thing, but I don't encourage it. I kind of want to just pass on the knowledge of how to approach these factions, and you can play it with a lot of flexibility. If you want to wipe out Yuan Shu first, you can go north. If you want to wipe out Sun Jian first, you can go south. Those are all options. If you want peace with everyone, you can, and you can wipe out the Yellow Turbans if you want. But the whole idea here is when you're playing Liu Biao, you have to realize in the early game, you have no governance. this resource goes from 0 to 1000. You start with 5 points, and the first marker here is 50. So your goal is actually to get out of your first insignificant governance level and into the second tier so your domain can double, right? What does this mean when you have domain of 2? It means you can only hold 2 counties. That's a county, that's a county. Each name location is a county. It's not a 2 commanderies. It's not like you can own Xiangyang and Nanyang. You can only own 2 pieces of land. If you own more than that, you will lose diplomatic relations, you will lose imperial favor, a bunch of penalty will be given to you. You don't want that. Ideally, you want to be below your domain. So you see here, if your domain is lower, right now it's counting you, right? You see currently control fewer counties than your domain allow. You get improved relationship with every single Han Empire faction on the map. You get public order, you get imperial favors every turn, and you gain additional governance for being below your domain limit. When you hit your domain limit, these rewards will drop. And if you go above your domain limit, these will become negative. So that's going to be very difficult for you to deal with, and you don't want that. So how can we quickly grow our governance from 0 to 50 and then to like 150 and 300, 500, 750, 999, and all the way to 1000? Well, you see that you never lose governance. So it is going to build up over time. And once you do hit your 1000 points, which shouldn't take you that long to be honest, it feels like a lot, but with the way we're going to play, it's actually going to come pretty quickly. So you see that you get 32 maximum counties. That's not a lot. Victory condition is 95. So this means if you want to win the game, either you have to just go above your domain limit, which you don't have to, or just have a single tall faction with 32 pieces of land and have a bunch of vassals totaling over 95 and you win the game. And when you're at this level, every single character will have plus 25 points of satisfaction. You get 25% diplomatic income from tributaries on top of what Liu Biao provides, so 75% right there. If you can get Zhengjiang, another 50%. And the whole goal of that is if you're going to have a lot of vassals, they're going to pay you a lot of money because what they pay you is considered diplomatic tributes. And you also get 5% replenishment. Now these bonuses are just lower amounts at each tier. And you just pretty much want to first get out of the negative zone because -5 satisfaction plus the -10 satisfaction you get from legendary is very hard to deal with. And you also get -1% replenishment, and the diplomatic tribute income doesn't really matter that much right now because we only have 2 very minor vassals. Obviously you would like to not have it. So how do we deal with that? Well, you see that we're already gaining 2 for vassal. The other way to gain it is by using the lodging building, right? So the lodging building, how it works here is you see this looks like a regular inn, but if you level it up past level 2, once you hit level 3, you have, it's not displaying it. You get +1 governance here. It's not showing it. That's a graphic error. I think it should be, let me see if I can pull it up again. I think it's just, oh wow. Okay. Well, how it works is that you get +1 point, +2 points. I think all the way here is like +4 points. But if you go the T route, it's 3, 4, 5. I think it's like 1, 1, 2, 2, 4 versus like 1, 1, 3, 4, 5. As in the T version gives more money, faction-wide character experience, as well as 5 points of governance. I have no idea why it's not being displayed. But another cool thing about these buildings, and the most important thing about your lodging building, is if you pay close attention to where they're locked, right? Typically, the first 3 buildings are always available. And once you get to level 4, you need reforms. Right here it tells you you need Liu Biao, which is a blue reform. We'll talk about it once we hit the first spring. And then here you need Wei Qi for the second reform. Same thing for these 4 and 5, except for they also need T. Usually, if you want to build level 5 buildings, you would need a small regional city. You see here, there is no city level requirement for your unique building. Compare that to, say, a state workshop. If you want to upgrade to level 5, it must be a small regional city. So that's why I usually stay at the city level until I have the reforms, then I upgrade the settlement to small regional city. In this case, the lodging building can be built even in a level 1 settlement. So with that said, your goal really is to basically control all settlements, capitals. You want capitals instead of counties using your domain limit. You don't want the resource counties. They don't help you gain more governance. So you technically only want to hold capitals. And that's our strategy here. And we're going to try to push that as we go forward. So first things first, before we do any fighting, diplomacy is the #1 concern. Also note that you start with a food issue. That's mainly because you have a city and you don't really need a city. You can drop down to a small city, get some money for that, and also save 4 food, putting you in the positive. And you're only in the positive because you're actually farming food yourself. It's not really optimal build here, but it's fine in the early game. You also start with a tax and a useless patrol building. So technically what you want to do is actually demolish this and downgrade this on the first turn. Don't build anything because this is the 4th slot. When you downgrade, this slot will be gone. So if you put in any build this turn, it will actually just get canceled when you downgrade completes. It's also strange that you can't build, because we don't have enough money, but we'll have enough money very soon. All right, we also have a huge roster of characters. We have a big family, our faction leader, our wife, our oldest son, our second oldest son. We also have a daughter who is not of age yet, she's 6. And then we have 4 generals. The Kuai brothers are here to help us, but we're only going to keep one of them. Huang Zhong obviously being unique is great. And even though Lo Gui has a unique background, it's really worthless. Just gives you 3 wooden stake, or actually 2 technically. The third one you need to make him Prime Minister, heir, or faction leader, and also 10% character salary for him. Totally not worth it. Also not even significant historically, so I think we can just, fire him. But we'll get to that. First things first, diplomacy as we mentioned. Usually you're looking for a trade agreement, and we'll do that. And our targets, as you can see here, is Dongzhuo, Yuanshu, and Han Empire, all positive. Dongzhuo has the highest positive amount and also the highest value. Now, the advantage of trading with the Han Empire is that they start out with tea. This might seem tempting, but in reality, Sun Jian is very likely to take that tea away from them. So you're probably going to lose that tea, and we probably want to, ideally, go south with our campaign so that we can control the tea ourselves. So that's kind of the goal here. So I think of all these trade partners, Dongzhuo makes the most sense. And if we take a look here, 1.2 doesn't actually add up to a lot of money, right? If we ask for money, 1.4. If we drop it to 1.2, it's so little, right? Even if we can get like 31, right? 310 gold, copper in 10 turns, right? It's not a lot. So instead, what you want to do is pay him. And what we want to do is make a flat cash payment around 757, because if we lower it anymore, it drops in value. It feels like a lot of gold in the beginning, or a lot of copper. Let's just call it gold. It's technically made of copper. You only have 2,000. You're paying about a third of that. But what you get from that, using 757, is you can increase his per turn payment to 167. So that means you jumped about 136 per turn for 10 turns. So you paid 700, you're getting 1,360 back. Very good deal. So let's sign this. And then we're not done, because we mentioned, because we have vision of Sun Jian on turn 1, we can always grab the Imperial Jade Seal. Now, usually you get a mixed bag of items on turn 1, of course, and the better quality item you get, the better you can trade for stuff. Using our guide will give you an option where if you get no items, you'll still be fine. And the items you always have is Stone Pig, Wooden Ox, and the Heirloom Bow of Huang, which we're not going to trade away. We're going to give away the guaranteed spawns on turn 1. These will always be with you. So basically that means we got a Jade Monkey, we got a Guard, and we got a Battle Axe on turn 1. 2 silver and 1 common, that's actually super good. But regardless of what he has, we're just gunning for the Imperial Jade Seal. This means we're still missing a bunch of money. We're going to offer him per turn payment. Now, this is usually very precious, but then again, the seal is also very precious, and you just have to pay him 749. And this guarantees you the seal. If you want to keep some of your money, because let's say you got a pretty useless item, like Jade Monkey's not that useful in the beginning, you can definitely use this to kind of save yourself some points. You can definitely do so, but I'm going to do the guide where we play it without any variance. So if you get no items, you're still fine. We trade for the seal. Now, Sun Jian's situation is something we need to talk about. Ideally, he should be the first faction you target. The reason's quite simple. He doesn't like you, first off, if you look at the attitude. So it's very likely you guys enter into war. There's an early game event that you can largely control the outcome. You don't have to enter into any wars, but you can end up fighting him through the event. And on top of that, he dies quite early in most campaigns, and Sun Ce is someone you want to grab. Now, there are cases where he will die after Sun Ce comes of age, but because how much he doesn't like you, even if you do the divorce wife trick to get some suitable female to marry Sun Ce before he dies, the problem is he values Sun Ce too much and hates you too much at the point where it becomes like a -40 type of deal, which just pretty much is impossible. So if you want to get Sun Ce in your campaign, what you have to do is fight him in a war and beat him down to the point where he will throw you a favorable deal where you can vassalize him and then you annex him. And that also opens up the gate to the entire south, because once Sun Jian's gone, the south is yours. You can take your pick of counties that you want to keep in your domain, because ideally with limited number of counties, you want capitals, you want tea, you want places like armor craftsmen, you want places like weapon craftsmen, you want those special locations. So that's kind of a strategy you can go for, and that's why I usually would recommend targeting Sun Jian. So with that said, we got our deals done, but we're not actually done with our turn. We will put that seal on and look very nice. You can see our authority right now is 6 points. If we add this, we'll first get 8 points of satisfaction to everyone, 25 points of prestige to the faction, more authority, which should increase this to 7 points, and also everyone, when they're defending, gets 3 points of morale. And our heir right now is our second son. He is fine because he is, you know, a commander. You really don't have a better choice. Technically, you can give it to your wife, but her trait's not that great either. Magistrate is 5% from all sources, which on paper, you know, looks better than 4 points of public order. But I actually think 4 points of public order is better than 5% from all sources. The rationale here is with 6 points of public order, you can boost your tax rate. And the first boost is 10% income and I think 25% extra food. So essentially with 4 points here, you're getting a lot more than 5% income if you are using it. So we're just going to switch his weapon. Right now he's 3 points. If we swap him to the one that actually gives authority, it goes to 5 points. Big difference in terms of keeping your characters happy. If you have other items that could give satisfaction on first turn, like other authority items, feel free to give it to him. Otherwise, that sword change alone is worth about 2 points of satisfaction, and we're at a pretty decent place. Diplomacy can be extended farther. You don't have to end here. With Yuan Shu, if you don't want to fight him, the easy way is to support him. This will put you guys in sort of an alliance, and he'll like you, he wouldn't go to war with you, and you can take a look at his items on turn 1, see if anything you like. In this case, nothing. Then we're just going to ask for a little bit of money. These deals last for 8 turns. You get legitimacy, which, you know, for AI factions, it doesn't really matter. Now you can see here, he's not going to pay you at all. So we're going to look into giving him cash again to see like how much cash he like. So if it's worth it at all, because that's like 50, right? In this case, these will be even, or else we can't get any sort of payment from him. And now we can get quite a bit extra. Right, so essentially we paid 500 to get 770 down the line, or else we'll be just wasting 1.9 points. Think of it as a loan. Alright, so we're done with that, but we're still not done, because there's still a lot of good things we can offer as a faction. First off, we are a liege. We have 2 vassals. So definitely offer them guarantee of autonomy by saying, we will never annex you, right? And that's something that's worth a ton. And you can look at their item to see if there's anything you like, anything you want to maybe save to use as trade value down the line. So if you see like a silver item, silver items are worth 10 points. And you can probably squeeze out a little, oh no, actually you can't squeeze out a little cash, but maybe, how much do they value their common items? 4.4. This is a little bit awkward. Maybe we take 2 bronze is what we do. It's 4.2.3. Okay, of these 2, the stone pig, I don't really care. Alright, let me just take this cup. I can give it to my son, and he can basically boost our faction satisfaction with it. And we'll pick up some spare change on top of that, and make our vassals like us even more. They will still pay us. This doesn't mean anything. This just means we're telling them we won't, annex them, which is something that we're not going to do anyways, because we want vassals for points. We don't want vassals to annex them. And same thing here. This is good for 1 silver items if he has it. He does not. So instead we'll be taking... I'll be taking this. And hopefully he will pay us something. There we go. Right, you kind of just want to play all your cards, right? As the lead, you have 2 vassals, use them. As neighbor, eventually use support legitimacy. Knowing Sun Jian's here, we grab his seal. Now diplomacy is done. And then we have our first battle, which we can feel free and fight. But before you fight, you actually want to set up your court. This is actually only for Liu Biao's faction because of these court scholars. So you have tutor, scholar, student. Scholar requires you to be higher rank to unlock. You need second marquise. Student requires someone who's young. By young, they mean below 35. You can use anyone you want. The bonus is extra experience gain for them, and also no desire for higher office until level 3. Liu Qi is currently in your army, and he should probably lead your first couple armies. So let's use him. And then tutor needs to be between 35 and 55. You have your choices here. There is no wrong answer, but I usually prefer to just grab Huang Zhong. That way I can fire these 2. So let's put Huang Zhong here. Given his high expertise, he'll make a pretty good administrator early on, but you don't start out with 1. Once you do start out with 1, you should probably pick up someone older than 35, actually, and then you can swap them out. As a matter of fact, I think Kuai Yue is almost 35. In a few turns, he's going to turn 35. So, oh, and why we want someone here is because the bonus is 10% character experience for that character, and also 10% faction-wide. So we're actually getting faction-wide bonuses here. He's going to pick up this cup we just got. I mean, of course, you might not get a cup, but you can get some items for them. It doesn't actually increase authority, so we're just going to put it on him for fun. And we can start delegating this fight. Now, it kind of matters who leads. It determines who gets more experience. Well, let's change some of these weapons first. And we're not actually going to fight them, just kind of waste our time here for this guide. It's not going to affect us that we delegate and lose more men than, you should. Because we're going to disband these men afterward. Just make sure you're done with diplomacy. If you capture, release for extra money. And we get our first mission completed. Second mission is to capture our settlement, and we actually get rewarded with 3 turns of 8 points of governance, and also improve diplomatic relations with all Han Empire factions, which is all factions not Yellow Turban, not Bandit, not Nanman. And this will delegate as well. Alright, piece of cake. And we get a 3-turn boost, so worth 24 points of governance. And if we build a building, we get to start your economy grows. So here's where things get a little tricky. The next step for us, my recommendation is trade for Shangyong, trade for this town. You only can hold 2, so you want to ideally trade the toolmaker for that town. And if you look at the price, it's actually ridiculous. The Han Empire want about 30 points for the town, and you only can put up 8.8. Now this 8.8 is going to stay relatively the same. You see most of this is from opinions. So the region's worth is barely anything, which means it doesn't really matter what you can do. Even if you upgrade it, it's not going to be worth that much more. And if you downgrade it, you're not going to lose that much more. But we're not going to downgrade it. It's still generating income for us per turn. Here, this will change slowly because his opinion of us will rise. We learned that, above 15 is a certain threshold. So we can actually see this value dip just next turn. Military strength in strategic situations not going to change very much. So essentially, we're going to wait on this deal. But that's the first thing we want to go for. And because we want to go for that, we're going to take out all our units. That way we can save the most income. We're going to recall all 3 of these generals so they can full heal. And we're going to assign some assignments because we started with 2, because Liu Biao luckily starts with the nobility skills. We actually get 1 extra assignment. And the ones we want is we want our heir to level up. So we're going to put him into tax because there are 2 peasantry income. And we're also going to use Kuai Yue, who has the reward the filial incorrupt, which will give the faction-wide 10 points of satisfaction. Now you might be wondering why we need this, because with the Imperial Seal and also all the boosts we give into the heir, everyone's happy with us. That is true. But I'm going to be doing something where everyone's going to be unhappy with us, so we're going to need this. It will activate next turn. And what else will happen is that we're going to fire the 2 people we're not using and are not part of our family. Because if you think about it, everyone who's part of our family, all these characters are free, no salary. These 4 cost something. 2 of them right now are useful, 2 are not. So the 2 that are not useful are going to get banished. We'll lose 5 points of satisfaction for 5 turns, and they will stack. But we get 1,600 back, which put us over 2,000, right? And on top of all that nice money that we get, we will lose 10 points. As you can see, the 5 points of banishment for each. But then next turn, he activates, and it bumps us back by 10 points. So it'll be fine. Now, the only thing you might want to consider at this point is actually demolishing this with an instant construction. The purpose of this is shorten the amount of build time you need for your lodging building. So I prefer this. Don't do this too early because I believe the retinue that you get from it counts for diplomacy. So all the diplomacy we did so far required us having this. But now we don't need it, and we're going to put that lodging building down. Alright, and that's it for turn 1. We're done. We can't really do any more diplomacy, we can't do any taxes. We're growing slowly, as you can see here, 12 points, 2 vassal points, 1 for each vassal we have. So from that, vassal is not a great way to gain governance. Lodging is. So we're going to push for that strategy. Let's continue for now. Alright, so turn 2. There is no one good on turn 2. You're waiting for usually spring to get good characters. And now we're waiting for this to finish. The reason behind this, as you can see, governance is taking here. So it wasn't shown here. Now it's showing. So that was definitely an error on turn 1. So let's see if I remember correctly. 1 point, 1 point, 2 point, 2 point, 4 point, 3, 3, 3, 5, not 3, 4, 5. So obviously, if you compare the 2 with T, it's more income, character experience faction-wide, more governance. So you definitely want to go this route. You definitely want to get T. But before you get T, just build these and then swap them over once you do get T. Alright, so that's going. You could rush it, but I would prefer to wait and build up some cash because we're going to need the money very soon. Because remember this deal, we didn't tick up that much higher with him, but I believe the value is going to dip. Huh, interesting. The military dropped 0.5 even though we withdraw our army because most of his army got wiped on turn 1. But the opinion is actually surprising. I would think that we would have gone to the positive because this should trend up towards 16, but it's not. Let's observe this for one more turn. All you need to do is just resummon them so they're not bored. This isn't the happiest army, and you probably want him to lead because he does start out with reach. Alright, running a pretty tight ship. Nothing's really wasted, and we're just going to continue here. Alrighty, we're in the winter season. We got another item. Constantly check this value. In my experience, it dips to about 28. It's not, which is interesting. It's because of this, right? If we are... I know what changed. So what changed here is usually, on my test runs, I don't sign the legitimacy deal on turn 1. And that's what's causing this, because we have a treaty with our enemy. His enemy is Yuan Shu. We're supporting his legitimacy. So usually this would be at 21. So that will give us about 2 points here. It'll be 28.6 because the opinion on this idea will drop. And we'll also actually get extra points from these because the opinion on these will also drop. But here it's becoming more difficult. Now we can still push this through with money, of course. And we will do that. But don't do that until you've triggered your economy grows. Because this mission will be aborted the second you trade away any piece of Xiangyang. So you have to wait. You cannot trade this away. You cannot trade the territory until you finish your first construction. So there's nothing to do. A lot of Liu Biao's early game is wait. You're waiting for governance. That's really the early game here. So let's just continue. Alright, we triggered it. Our next mission is recruit 2 extra units. We have 3 on the field, so 5. Get a little experience. Now we can trade. But first check if there's any interesting characters. There's 2. They're basically all no past loyalties, haven't worked for anyone. So go ahead and grab them. They'll be great additions, and they won't feel any of the firing effect because they weren't there when you banish characters. And as Liu Biao's faction, you actually want to pay attention to age. So Chen Gong here is 36, older than 35, very key. And what we're going to do here is we're going to pick our first reform. Now, let me explain what reforms are important for your faction. So usually, when you play a faction that has a strong frontline unit as a unique unit, you're missing some range unit. So Onyx Dragon's always a great idea. That's still true. You even start out with Private Tutor for free. So you don't need to build a school building. That is all great. But don't go for this first. The most important reforms you need for Liu Biao's faction are these 3 here, because you have Private Tutor, or else you need that too. Because you need the level 4 lodging building. It's not shown on the artwork, but you need this, Liu Bo. You also need Wei Qi. So you want to rush this branch very early so you can build level 5 in everywhere. Right? You don't need small regional cities, so you can build them anywhere. So these 3 are very important. But don't grab these 3 first. On the first turn, you actually want to grab the eunuch secretary. So you can get your administrator early on. And that role is going to go to Huang Zhong, who's going to give us a huge discount in building our lodging building. And then the tutor goes to Chen Gong. There's also a chance you picking up people like Lu Zhi, and Lu Zhi will be like 52, so it will slot in perfectly. And he's going to be 35, I think, next turn or the turn after. So even if you leave it empty for a turn, you'll be fine. Alright, that's all done. Now you can see it's a lot cheaper to build because Huang Zhong has, insanely high expertise here. If you have other items that could benefit, use them. Don't be shy. And before we build, I think now we triggered your economy grows. We can talk to him. So you see here, waiting this out, the boost is not from nothing. The boost is from finishing some of those missions. Remember it says +2 relationship with Han. Also, I think we dipped... Not yet. But regardless, it does change over time. And because of this relationship change, above 15 is going to make a big difference. 2 points is a big difference. And also, you get 2 more points, or actually 3 more points here. The opinion on this went from -4 to -1. And we can also offer him food. We can also offer him money, right? You have a lot of cash. But here, I actually recommend you think about offering him per turn payment, because those cash need to be... just don't go all cash. Because you need the cash for building during these 3 turns of your economy grows. So you want to tweak it a little. Now, every playthrough is going to be a little different depending on how many generals you recruit, how many unique general pop up. Maybe you didn't get those two. Maybe you have like 14k right now. But you want to save some money because you want to build. And you can offer him more per turn payment. Just balance out a little bit. So I think I'm going to give him about 1,200 here. And see how much we need here to make it work. All right, that might be, yeah, that might be the best outcome here. Oh, right. This is when, if you have items, it would be great, right? You could have traded for at least 2 bronze items with your guarantee of autonomy. So let's say I don't really want this book. I don't think this is really useful. Obviously, we roll that, and that's going to save us a ton. And that's what we want to do. Right, if we can save money here. Oh my god. There we go. All right, we push this deal through. We pick up the territory. And we still have a decent amount of money to build this turn. This is fake, because you actually lose the prestige from your toolmaker and the game doesn't calculate that correctly, so it thinks you rank up, but you haven't. You will, just not now. You want to demolish this building, you want to rush it so you can start building right away. Lodging. You want to upgrade this. You want to rush this before the 3 turns up so that you can take full advantage of your economy growth. And we still don't need an army because there's no threat. He has the legitimacy deal with us. And he can't get to us unless he goes through either our vassal or go through Yuan Shu. And the High Empire is our friend as well. So in the early game, you're pretty much set now, right? There's not too much you got to worry about. You just got to build up. And then once you're ready and determine which strategist you want in your army, most likely you're subbing him out, right? You're probably subbing him out for either Chen Gong, who doesn't like anyone, but it's fine. If you can't get a good relationship set up, maybe you want to switch Huang Zhong out and go with Yu Jin, Chen Gong, and maybe Liu Qi. It's up to you. But we can just continue for now. Alright, we got some experience. This is turn 5. So I think Sun Ce comes of age on turn 7. You can, pay close attention to that to see when you might want to divorce your wife. Get 5% replenishment here. When you recruit your first army, you get that mission completion. You get 10% more replenishment. And you'll be ready then. But right now we're just interested in building and saving money, and look like our governance is going to hit over 50 finally in 2 more turns. And the cool thing about owning this piece is that you can trade for this piece whenever you have the means. Not that, this right here. That way you get a nice weapon craftsman, and it's very cheap. Like, this is just a cash deal pretty much. So you can do that whenever you want. I actually don't recommend doing it early. I know a lot of players like to kind of gamble on these. They think they can get a gold weapon. Yeah, it's true, you can. But like I said, early domain is very limited, right? You get 4. Then at that point, you want capitals. You want places like Runan. You want places like Changsha, right? You want to wait for Sun Jian to expand down. You want to send an army down there, grab his capital, and then beat his army a couple times, get a very favorable peace deal, vassalize him. Because I'm going to show you guys that his son is just really not willing to come over. Alright, nice level up, another assignment available. So in this case, Yu Jin can come here and help us build. You're not always going to have a sentinel, but in this case we do. Let's continue. Alrighty, harvest season, no one interesting. So depending on what you want to do with him, he's not super useful. I would think he would be a assignment character for most of the game. So you can just kind of ignore, just go for the flaming shot. That's pretty much the only thing that he will be useful for. And then we are rushing this because we're on our last turn. and we're gonna put in the build order for that. We're gonna build this. Given that we have so much cash left over and how fast we can build here, we will rush that, and you can see we're reform locked, which means we probably shouldn't have rushed that actually, now in hindsight, because we didn't get the Liu Biao. 2,000, 3,000. Yeah, we rushed this. You pretty much want to just go all in on the lodging. That was a waste because we actually don't have any reforms for any of them. But overall, that's kind of the strategy here. All right, let's go one more turn. Sun Jian wants us to pay for non-aggression. No thanks. You can see he just doesn't like us. Even the training is going good, but still negative. All right, he can fight Yellow Turbans for us. Improve our relationship with Huangzhong. Piece of Age. Turn 7. And if we want to check this, we have to divorce, because then our wife will become a suitable candidate. Cost us 1,000. She will not hate us. She will actually not hate us for this. So she instantly become marriage bait. It's 40 points because of the negative value we have with him. Now, can we shift this value to positive by using a lot of diplomacy deals? It's possible, because it's actually trending in the right direction. We can, like, once we hit 0, the deal will become something like, you know, negative 25 instead of negative 40. It's just not worth it. So my opinion is actually just don't do this deal. Don't divorce your wife. Wait until you have an army. Target him first. Take his capital. Beat him down. Get a annexation, vassalization deal with him, and that way you can pick up his whole family. Doesn't matter if Sun Jian dies. He usually dies around turn 9. All right, so right now I think this guide is pretty much a wrap, because that's kind of all we need to set up. You can take many variations of this guide, right? In this variation, we're going to be setting up an army soon. We're probably going to swap them out for Chenggong. We're going to use the money we save probably next turn to outfit an entire army. And then we're going to run our army over here to Runan. You can take the iron mine and trade it to one of your vassals, and then take the capital and keep it, and then march down south, fight Sun Jian here, and take his capital. That way you stay within your 4 domain limit. And then you're just going to spam lodging buildings in all those commanderies you capture. And the next 3 reform are going to be this one first, into that one, so you can get level 5, you know, lodging building every single commandery. With 4 of them, you're gaining anywhere from 16 points to 20 points, depending on if you have the T or not. Assuming you do end up here, by the time you do get this, you should be in your 3rd one. You should have 8. Then you can add things like the T, the armor craftsman, buy the weapon craftsman, and then pick out some other commanderies you're interested in, get the capital piece, and basically spam more lodging until you build this up. And this never declines. Therefore, you're just going to get stronger. And the faster you get stronger, the easier your campaign will be. So that's pretty much how you would play Liu Biao's faction. And if you don't want to go south and fight Sun Jian, and you want to pay for the marriage, go for it. You always have this opportunity on turn 7. You can choose to go north. You can go wipe out Yuan Shu early by building out an army earlier than this. You don't even have to trade for that. We spend a lot of cash doing that. You can build your first army then, even with this group with no strategists, because there's just only a level 2 town with a pretty bad retinue setup. You can beat them pretty easily with your generals, and then take this as one of your capital, as your second piece of land. Beat his faction down. Any land you capture, you can try to trade it away, and then you can move your way over to Luoyang, pick up another capital. That way you can have, you know, all capital buildings, building governance, same idea. So that's kind of how you want to approach the early game. And eventually you get to the point where, you know, you become strong enough to gain the land you want to gain, have an easier time dealing with your characters, and, you know, afford a bunch of good armies, because Liu Biao really makes things quite easy with his background. 20% discount for all character salary, 20% recruitment cost for all PORM, infantry. So your army composition for like Liu Biao, for example, given that you have a cavalry officer, would just be infantry of Xing. These guys are really good. So definitely just spam them. And if you get the level 6 version, spam them. They're a good upgrade option, and you can build a pretty good range comp with people like Huang Zhong who have actual good range boost. So that's kind of the strategy you're going for. Hopefully you guys enjoy this guide, and see you guys next time. Bye!